What's up, y'all? Logan Parker, Heirloom Builders. Welcome back. We're at the Wedding Barn, and today we are finishing up our loft floor joist framing and working on this window wall so that we can set our trusses next week. If all goes well, we'll be able to set these trusses next week and get a roof on here soon, which we have been looking forward to for 6 weeks now. That's going to be critical. Here we go. Something to be stoked about. So in order to frame this window wall, we've got a bunch of different layers that we got to put on here. So Ben and Blada are working on the floor joist system that the window wall framing sits on top of. And once we have the floor joists in, we can put a 2x6, dimensional 2x6, 1.5 by 5.5 dressed piece of lumber down on top of the floor joist that's going to simulate the tongue and groove decking that's going to go as the finished floor on top of these rough sawn 4x10 floor joists, which we can't put in yet because there's no roof and it cannot get wet. And then on top of that is a nominal 2x6 rough sawn 2x6 that's going to be our bottom plate for this window wall. And then once we got that rough sawn 2x6, then we can lay out our window. So we find our center line of our window and we measure half of the rough opening on both sides of that center line to get the layout for our 4x6, which are our window jack studs, our trimmers.
Yep.
On there.
73.
And then we go ahead and measure down from the top. All our windows are going to install to the top of that, or the bottom of that 6x12 beam that supports the roof rafters up high. So we pull down 47 5/8. That's our rough opening. And that's where we lay out the notches that go in our 4x6 jack studs, our trimmers that are the sides of the window framing, the rough window framing. And when we cut those notches, we can install those 4x6s, get them nice and plumb and square, and then we can install a 2x14, which serves as the window sill, and it's a 14-inch wide girt sill that goes all the way across, notched butt into the 10x10 posts and notched through each one of the 4x6 window jack studs. It's 14 inches wide because we have some space in between the window, the bottom of the window, and the top of the truss. And we need to extend it 14 inches down so that we have ample space for nailing the top of the truss. I think we have 4.5 inches of meat of nailing in that 2x14 to nail the top chord of that truss to get a nice positive anchoring. And then we're gonna add a 2x6 up high in between the bearing beam up high and the 2x14 at the bottom of the window. Since that space is 4 feet, we typically shoot for about 3 feet of space, no more than 3 feet of space between horizontal nailers for our vertical cypress siding. Our wood siding needs no more than 3 feet of space in between each horizontal nailer. So since we have 4 feet, we're just gonna put one mid-span, run it at 2 feet. That's a 2x8 nailer. The next one down is 2x14. As you can see, we have recessed those knee braces in the top window wall 2 inches so that we didn't have to make some weird angled cut when we install our 2x8 nailers. They just go right over top of that knee brace and butt from the post to the window jack stud, trimmer stud. and nail right into that knee brace. That gives it additional support mid-span. And once we get all that installed, then we put up our plywood. We first start by snapping a line 6.5 inches from the bottom of that beam. That's where the bottom of our truss ledger, it's like double 2x4. That's gonna support the truss as it spans across to this bearing beam hanging off of this window wall. In order to tie all of the window wall framing together and build it out to simulate the thickness of that vertical wood siding, we're using a 3/4 inch piece of plywood, and that's what that red chalk line is for. And Mike is putting ledgers in there to support the plywood so that we don't have to hold it while we nail it. We can just set it up on the ledger and nail it off. All right, that's about right. We rip our plywood to 3'6". It's not quite a 4-foot sheet of plywood. We can gang rip these. So I screw 4 pieces of plywood together with a 3-inch screw, tighten them all up on the corners, make sure they're nice and flush, and rip all 4 or all 3 sheets with one cut. And it goes just far enough down that it makes the groove for the next one. As soon as I snap a line for that first cut, I'm cutting 3 pieces of plywood and making a score mark on the 4th one that serves as my cut line for the next 3. So you can really stack your functions here if you think about it, and save yourself a lot of time. And the final step, once we get the 3/4 inch plywood that's going to close off that wall and simulate the thickness of the siding, install the double 2x4 ledger that the trusses will sit on. And we're going to level that over from this beam over to this wall and install them. And then we'll be ready for our trusses. So if all goes well, we'll have the rest of this window wall framed up. We got our bearing wall here framed up, and we'll be ready for this whole side, to stack trusses on this whole side. So I'm really stoked that we're able to get this all going. Well, friends, it looks like we made it. We got our ledger on. We got our window walls framed. We got our bearing wall frame. And we're ready to stack trusses and make this a covered porch. Now that is something to be stoked about. I hope you learned something from this video, or at least found it interesting. If so, smash that like button. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, y'all, thanks for watching. Peace out.